All right, hello. My name's Chris DeFay, and this is a Talks at Google presentation here in Google's Los Angeles office. We're very pleased today to welcome author and musician Ian Whitcomb. Ian is a native of Surrey, England, and a current resident of Altadena, northeast of downtown Los Angeles, and has been entertaining the world for decades. After hitting the American top 10 charts in 1965 with his novelty record, You Turn Me On, and finding himself in the company of young bands like the Rolling Stones, he devoted his work to resurrecting the roots of pop music, especially ragtime and Tin Pan Alley. He's performed everywhere, from the Hollywood Bowl to the Montreux Jazz Festival, and has appeared on Johnny Carson, The Tonight Show. As an author, he's published over 20 books, and is best known for his book, After the Ball, on the history of pop music from rag to rock. Today, he'll be discussing the topic of his recent book, Ukulele Heroes, The Golden Age, and playing us a few samples, I think.
Well, I'll try.
Yes. Please join me in welcoming Ian.
Thank you. First of all, how many of you here actually play the ukulele? Good, great. Well, I used to be a very good player, but I had an illness and I can't strum very well. Well, here's the ukulele. This is a Martin. So one of the best ones you can get. It's nice. I call this a pleasingly plangent sound. So it's a four-stringed instrument, and I'll give you a little brief history, but not too much of it. I want questions from you all too. Brief history is that it was actually not invented in Hawaii at all. It was invented by the Portuguese. It was called a machete there. And in fact, there's a picture from 1860 of the girl who became Alice in Wonderland playing her machete. And it was brought across to Hawaii by Portuguese who were working in the plantations there, in the sugar plantations. And they had 4 of them on board a ship which arrived, called the Ravenscrag, which had arrived in 1878. And the Hawaiians immediately took to this instrument, which they called it ukulele, or ukulele as they say in Hawaii, which means jumping or leaping flea, and they loved it, especially the royalty, Hawaiian royalty. At that time, it was a free country. That was just before America came in and acquired, well, shall we say, they overthrew the queen. We won't go into that. It's a sore point with Hawaiians. It was a bloodless revolution, or rebellion, or whatever what you would call it, takeover by American businessmen in the pineapple business. But anyway, it's all in my book. Point is that the point is the last queen, whose name I can't pronounce, who's on the cover of my book. I should know her name. Some of you may know her name. She was a wonderful composer, and she wrote great songs. She wrote a famous Aloha Oe. Sounds Jewish, it's not. Aloha Oe. And she played the piano, and she survived the overthrow of her country. The steel guitar, by the way, was actually invented by the Hawaiians. That's where you pull a metal bar across the strings. They did actually invent that. They didn't invent the ukulele, but they did invent this slide guitar, which of course is now associated very much with blues and country, but it actually comes from Hawaii, so they can claim that one. But I won't get too historical, but what happened was that eventually the mainlanders, as they call us, got to hear about the ukulele. In 1915, there was an exposition in San Francisco called the Pan-Pacific Exposition. And the Hawaiians sent across, they had their own pavilion, and they sent across their bands, which were the most popular things of all, these Hawaiian bands with ukuleles and steel guitars, and more importantly, hula girls swaying, because the hula, although it's a religious dance, we see it as a sort of sexy dance from the hips, but the Hawaiians don't think that. They think it's a very religious dance. Anyway, the hula girls and the Hawaiian bands were extremely popular in America in 1915, so much so that Tin Pan Alley in New York, where they wrote, I guess you all know what Tin Pan Alley is where they manufactured popular songs. They were all published in sheet music form. And Tin Pan Alley realized this was a phenomenon, and so they started writing songs about the Hawaii and what a blissful place it was. So Hawaiian bands toured America, became very popular, especially in the South, where the Southerners loved the steel guitar, and that's why you have the steel guitar in country music. It's because of the Hawaiian bands touring the country. Now, I should just tell you about myself a bit more. I was, as what Chris explained, I was a teen idol for a short time in the 60s. Probably nobody remembers You Turn Me On, do they? Anybody remember that song, You Turn Me On? It was top 10, top number 8. I think you do. In 1965, I was in the top 10, at the same time that the song Satisfaction was number 1. Anyway, quickly, I realized that rock and roll was not my field. So I'd bought a ukulele in a pawn shop, P-A-W-N, in Los Angeles, a Martin. And I immediately began playing the uke on the bus tours that I did with these rock and roll groups. And a group called the Turtles heard me and said, you ought to record some of these songs. So I did. I've been recording the older songs since, and my whole career has gone backwards because of that. But I was playing ukulele, and my version of this 1916 song, Where Did Robinson Crusoe Go, with Friday on Saturday Night, became a hit and established me as a uke player. And really, in a way, I suppose in a way, I started the whole uke revival, because this was before Tiny Tim, who is associated with this. Is from a songbook I've got out called Ian Whitcomb's Ukulele Sing-Along. It's a nice little book with a CD attached, which you can get online. It sells quite well. Anyway, we've reached the point where Tin Pan Alley is cashing in on the Hawaiian craze. And in America, people are buying ukuleles. The Martin Company begins to build a ukulele. If you have any questions, ask them anytime you like. Sorry, yes, a question.
Did you say a date or a decade when the ukulele was introduced by the Portuguese to Hawaii?
Yes, well, they came over in a ship, 3 of them, in 1878 in the Ravenscrag. They landed in Hawaii, in Honolulu, and they were all craftsmen. They had the ukuleles with them, and many of them could build ukes. And so the first ukuleles were built by Portuguese craftsmen. And then they gradually, as I said, it became popular from about 1915, and then the mainlanders began to make ukes, although Hawaii still makes very good ukes. If you want to buy one, by the way, my friend who put this out, Jim Biloff, has a very good company called Fluke, F-L-U-K-E. And they make really good ukes. They're designed by an MIT engineer. They're partly wood and partly plastic, but they have a beautiful sound. So that's Jim Biloff. His email address is fleamarketmusic.com. And
I'm curious because Mark Twain was in Hawaii in the 1860s.
Yes. There wouldn't have been a ukulele then. It was the Portuguese had it in the 1860s. It was called a machette. It never really caught on. It was only when the Portuguese brought it to Hawaii, and then the Hawaiians loved it. They called it the ukulele, a jumping flea, and then it got popularized from that. They really developed the whole strumming style. Yes.
Did they keep the same tuning that the Portuguese?
No, the original tuning was different. That tuning that I have there is the standard GCEA, My Dog Has Fleas. But in the old days, the early days, it was actually a different tuning. It was much higher, but it got standardized. If you look at old sheet music, you'll see that they have, from the 20s onwards, they have little I'm playing around with my technology. If you look at the old sheet music, and today, they have these little grids that show you where to put your fingers. Those were invented about 1920. And if you look at any old sheet music from that period, it's a ukulele arrangement. The reason is, and I should get back to this point, is that by that time, the ukulele had become really popular, very trendy. In the 1920s, in the jazz age, it was the trend to play a saxophone or play the drums or play the ukulele. That's why you see these young men in raccoon coats playing the ukulele. It was the way to woo your girlfriend. In fact, I have experience of that because, not in the 20s, but when before I met Regina, I had a lady friend, and I once sang on the beach to her, "You were meant for me." I was with my uke, and I was meant for you. And she took it seriously and said, "Do you mean that? Are you serious about that?" I realized then the power of these old popular songs. They're very powerful songs. It doesn't apply today because people shout today and they rant. I can't understand what they're talking about. But in those days, they were very romantic songs which hit the nail squarely on the head. So I love those songs. That's why I'm still very involved with old songs. I write books about old songs. I love old songs. I've written, by the way, if you go on YouTube, you can see some videos that I made with an Akai. I don't know if you know the Akai reel-to-reel. It was an early prototype video recorder, portable one. I had one, and I went to New York with it, and I videoed all the old songwriters I could find, including the man who wrote Swanee with George Gershwin, Irving Caesar. And these are all up online now on YouTube. You can see my interview with Johnny Marks, who wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You can see me, if you type in, I think he's doing it now, type in Ian Whitcomb, Harry Warren, who's a great songwriter, who wrote Home in Pasadena. You can see he and I singing that song together, and I'm accompanying him on the ukulele. He sings what he calls an obligato part. He was a great man. So I early on, when these songwriters were still alive, I took my video camera and I videoed them, as many as I could. Even U.B. Blake, who lived to be 100, I videoed him. I wish I'd done more of this. I mean, they're all dead now, but I mean, it was a wonderful, I was so glad that I did that. GCEA. My dog has fleas, fleas, my dog has fleas. And it's easy to play. The basic, the first, the C chord is, then G seventh, F, pleasant sound, isn't it? Anyway, now, well, I used to be a much strummer, but I had an illness, which I'm recovering from, by the way, folks. I'll just tell you now. I had a stroke about 9 months ago, so I'm doing my best. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. I survived the stroke, but my fingers are still bad. I can't feel much in this hand. It'll all come back. They keep telling me it'll all come back. I'm working on it every day. My wife's a great help. Anyway, got that out of the way. I'm still performing.
You're playing left-handed.
I'm left-handed.
You play left-handed.
I'm left-handed, so it means that I can't play the piano well now with my left hand, but I won't go into all that. I've survived, and I can talk, and I can walk, and I can be annoying. But by the way, I'm sorry I'm plugging myself. If you're interested, I have a radio show every Wednesday night on a site called luxuriamusic.com. It's a nice company, Luxuria Music, and I do it live. It'll be on tomorrow night, Wednesday night. If you really enjoy what I'm saying, if you go online and just put in Ian Whitcomb podcast, there are 93 radio shows that I did for XM. I used to work for a company called Premier Radio Networks. And amongst their radio shows that they make the most money off, not mine, they make money off Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannah, in years to come, because the CDs will all fade. We'll be left, stop it, Ian, we'll be left with LPs, and which will last forever, and 78s, which if you're careful with them, are wonderful things. That's my little speech about technology. I never understand why I see all these kids going around with these things stuck in their ears, because the sound on MP3s is terrible. They'll never hear what good sound sounds like. Good sound is an LP played through a good turntable. That's what I think. If you've got anything to challenge me on that, tell me. I'm an old technologist. I prefer old technology.
Are you going to talk later about sort of more recent resurgence in the ukulele?
Well, I do in the book about, yes, well, of course, there's been the resurgence. I didn't get to that. Sorry, I should quickly skip to that before we get on to Ukulele Ike. Well, the ukulele was very popular, as I was saying, in the 20s and the 30s, and then it started to fade away. And with the coming of rock and roll, it was completely out. When I was playing the ukulele in the 60s, people laughed at me. It became a joke instrument. Of course, Tiny Tim didn't help that. And it went out for a while until the resurgence, which has started on this West Coast, which is where most new things begin, on the West Coast. LA is a much better place than New York, by the way. This is where we develop the new things, in LA and California. Anyway, it started to have a comeback. It's huge now. Everybody's playing the ukulele. Warren Buffett plays it. And as I was saying before, if you watch any Pixar film, they always have a ukulele in every scene. They love the ukulele. They hired me to come up there and teach the directors to play the ukulele. So it's having a huge comeback. Why? Well, because it's very simple. It may be something to do with the economy. It's an easy instrument to play. You don't have to plug it in. You don't have to buy amplifiers and have complicated, sophisticated equipment. It's easy to play. And it's very pleasant. Everybody loves the sound of it. It's a very, very peaceful instrument. I believe the whole world's problems could be solved if we all just marched into trouble spots with our ukes, just strummed. I say that in the book. I get into that in the book. Yes, Regina, what?
Taylor Swift says right from the stage when she plays the ukulele that
Taylor Swift.
She thinks it has the friendliest sound of any instrument.
It's very friendly. You couldn't hit anybody with a ukulele. You couldn't rob them or murder them. It's a very safe instrument to play. I know. But anyway, so I was saying, did I explain the resurgence properly, sir? Did I play?
Just the other thing I've noticed is like that, teenagers, like anything else, and maybe this hasn't contributed to the popularity, but most teens that I know that have picked it up at least began to learn through watching YouTube videos.
Yes.
There's thousands and thousands of
YouTube has lots of videos of people playing it, how to play. It's an easy instrument to play. As I said, anybody can play it. It's great fun just to learn a few chords and just sing along at parties. It's so popular. As I said, I feel that I did play a little small part in having it become popular again, and I've always loved the sound of it. You can play any chord on the uke. It's a wonderful instrument. Well, now let's just get back to the 20s, if I may, and hear Ukulele Ike. We talked about scat singing. He did this, he called it eefing. Ukulele Ike's real name was Cliff Edwards. He had a very checkered life. If you read the book, I hope you've all copies of the book, you'll see there's a whole chapter on Ukulele Ike, Cliff Edwards, and his sad life. He was born in the same town as Mark Twain, Hannibal, Missouri. In fact, he met Mark Twain. But anyway, in the 20s, he became very popular with his records, playing his ukulele. And then in the 30s, he made lots of films. He's probably best known today because he lent his voice to the sound of Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. He sings very sweetly, "When You Wish Upon a Star," on the opening credits of that film. That's Cliff Edwards. He died. He was a gambler. He had trouble with his wives. He had so many wives. He spent all his money, drink and gambling, and died penniless and unknown in Hollywood. His body lay unclaimed for days. Finally, the Walt Disney Company paid for him to have a grave, which is actually out by Bob Hope Airport now. You can go and visit him. Not George. Ukulele Ike stuff is all available. Are you all enjoying this talk, by the way? You see you all smiling. Am I talking too fast? One of the results of my stroke is that I speak too fast. Then I get my tongue gets tripped. I trip my tongue. But anyway, as long as you can hear what I'm saying, I'm being articulate, that's great. I can see all your smiling faces. Well, now, we're getting towards the end of our examples, and I'd love to have some more questions. In England, the ukulele was very popular, largely through a man called George Formby. He's a hero in England, an absolute national hero. He started recording in the 1930s. He made films, Ealing films, which were the most popular films in the British box office. And he made songs in World War II. He played a banjo ukulele, but it looks like a banjo. It has a much stronger sound. He had an incredible strum, which if you go on YouTube, you can see people demonstrate. It's very, very hard to do. He had a syncopated strum. So he wrote some politically incorrect, or he recorded a lot of politically incorrect songs. He was from the north of England, I should add, the same part of the world as the Beatles. He had a goofy grin and big teeth. He spoke in a North Country accent. You know, he used to say, "He's turned out nice again, he, he, he." My uncle wrote some of his songs. My uncle wrote the A side of this next song, but it didn't become a hit. My uncle wrote Do 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 Blues, but that didn't. There you are. I hope that wasn't objectionable. I don't think so. It's just harmless stuff. But of course, in those days, British were so insular. They didn't care about offending anybody. And I guess it's not really offensive, actually, but we had our empire, and we've lost our empire now. And anyway, I won't excuse the song, except I think his playing is very good. I hope I'll have some more questions. I've really enjoyed talking to you all. I thoroughly approve of Google. You're wonderful. I wish I understood the computer more. I have a terrible trouble with typing now because of my illness. Every other word is a mistake. Every other word I type comes out as a typo. So I have to keep going back. By the way, if you're interested, I write regularly on my website a thing called Letter from Lotus Land. I've done that for 20 years now. There's even a book out which you can get on Amazon called Letters from Lotus Land. And if you go onto actually, if you just put it in to Google, just put Letters from Lotus Land, you'll see Ian Whitcomb's Letter from Lotus Land. And every month I write about what I've been doing. People seem to enjoy it all over the world. I've talked so much about myself, haven't I? But anyway, my wife is a wonderful singer. It's on that record called Legends of Ukulele. And once I was up in Oregon at a folk festival, and this woman said she was going to play this song, and I said, I'll play it. She said, no, I'd like to sing it. And she sang it in the most beautiful, straight way. And I thought, it's the most wonderful thing if you're a songwriter to hear somebody else who don't know sing your songs. It's just so heartwarming. All right, thank you. Just want to say that since we're in Venice, I play most Sundays at a restaurant in Playa del Rey called Cantalini's Salerno Beach Italian restaurant. It's very popular. We play from 6:30 till 9:30, not every week. I'll be there this Sunday. But it's really nice. Lots of people come to that. It's a lovely, delightful, not expensive. It's a nice little intimate place. And I play with Fred Sokolow, the guy you just heard playing the slide guitar and a bass player, and myself, and sometimes Regina comes down. So it's on Culver Boulevard in Playa del Rey, a nice part of the world. Cantalini's, Salerno Beach, Cantalini's.
There's a link in the Wikipedia entry.
There is.
So that's a good place for everyone.
Well, when you get a chance, if you're interested, do look me up. I've got so many things on YouTube. It's endless. I hope they stay up there. Some of them shouldn't be there, perhaps, but anyway. But I'm very happy to be on YouTube. Tons and tons of stuff. And all my books are available there, too. I've written about 18 books. The one that's the most fun, I think, is Letters from Lotus Land, which is on Amazon and something called Lulu. And so, anyway, are there any questions now? I've really enjoyed talking to you. Yes, sir?
I'm wondering what you think about someone like Jake Shimabukuro.
Wonderful player. Japanese.
He's like very virtuosic.
He's virtuosic. He's playing concert, he doesn't sing. He's playing the concert virtuosic style, which is completely different to what I was playing today. I was playing the singers who accompany themselves on the uke. Jake is a wonderful player, nice fellow, and he's playing the virtuoso, playing tunes on the ukulele, which is completely different to what I was. But I mean, there's room for us all. Ukulele is a very versatile instrument indeed. Any more questions? Yes.
Any history of the ukulele in?
I don't think it lends itself to the blues. It's too happy and jolly. It doesn't get blue, ukulele. Although there is a book. Fred Sokolow has put out a book of playing the blues on the ukulele. But to me, it's not really, its notes are very short and sharp. It doesn't really lend itself to that. It's just, you know. I hate to see the evening sun go down. It's too jolly. Too jolly an instrument. Anyway, any more questions? Yes.
I have a text from my cousin in Miami, who is a ukulele player.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons I actually came today, because he oftentimes will bring it to family gatherings and that sort of
yes.
thing. And he says, probably too late now, just thank him for me for bringing the uke to so many folks. So,
oh, how good. That's nice to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And he has a YouTube video he wants me to share with you later.
Well, in my own small way, I'm quite popular throughout the world. I mean, I've done so many things. By the way, what we didn't mention was I produced a CD which won a Grammy of the music played aboard the Titanic, which is it's a lovely CD. I decided that I'd worked on the James Cameron film. I knew he got it all wrong at the end. They did not play Nearer My God to the end. If a ship is sinking, you don't play that. You play something jolly and happy. So they actually played a song called Song d'Automne. So I went to Rhino Records and I said, look, why don't we make a record to come out the same time as Titanic, the film? We'll have the music that was actually played aboard the real ship. James Cameron was furious. But our record did extremely well and won a Grammy Award. It's a lovely record called Titanic, Music as Played on the Fateful Voyage. So I've done many, many things. I've even, believe it or not, been in films. You can see me in the film Contact. I played a BBC reporter in that. I did the music for The Cat's Meow for Peter Bogdanovich and other films which we won't mention. But I do act, I do all these things, write my books. Right now I'm sort of just trying to get better, recovery. But I've really enjoyed talking to you all today. So nice to see your happy faces. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Any more questions? Do we have time still?
You mentioned a couple different styles of
yes.
ukulele playing. I was wondering, since you mentioned the slide guitar starting out in Hawaii.
Yes, well that was Hawaiian.
Oh, we heard that, but didn't we hear that?
That was my friend Fred was playing a dobro guitar, but the earlier Hawaiian recording was just a slide. It was a regular guitar which they tuned to open strings, and then he slid sort of a metal bar along. That really was a Hawaiian invention, not from blues at all, but from Hawaii.
Did that change how people played the ukulele?
What?
Did that change how people played the ukulele?
No, I think they just strummed along. I think it's important. When you've got slide guitar playing, you really have to have the ukulele play a steady rhythm. Otherwise, it all gets thrown. You have to have them play a steady rhythm. I used to have a very good strum. I'm sure it'll come back in time, but my strum's a bit rudimentary right now. I'm playing this weekend at a place that's near Cantilene. It's called Boulevard Music. It's a folk place with Janet Klein and her parlor boys. I'm one of her parlor boys. I'm a bit old to be a boy, but still. I still play a lot. I still play all over the place. Do my radio shows. And I can see someone is bursting with a question. Are you? Hope you've all enjoyed it today. Yes?
I asked this of several people who spoke here. What do you want to do when you grow up?
I never did grow up. I've never had a proper job. By the way, I went to college, I went to university at Trinity College Dublin, which I believe you have Google has a big base there now, and the tallest building in Dublin, which was not there when I was there from 1961 to 65, and Dublin then was a very old-fashioned, priest-ridden country. It was full of, it was run by the Catholic Church. You couldn't have contraceptives there, for example. And so it was still set in the 18th century. It was stuck in it was very nice. The buildings were all exactly the same. The pubs were very old-fashioned. You'd watch the man pouring your Guinness, and it was an art form, skimming the top of the foam off the top. Pouring a Guinness, putting a Guinness was an art form. Dublin was a completely different place then. If you went to see a film there, you used to have commissionaires, men in uniform, standing outside. And there were always lines for films in those days, because everybody wanted to see films, and the films were all censored, so they couldn't have anything that had sex in it. And so whenever there was a cut in the film, the audience would shout out, "Snip, snip," because they thought it had been cut. It was a very old-fashioned country, in some ways wonderful, many ways. But I had a wonderful time there. I spent most of my time in pubs and bars. I took a history degree there. In my modern history, which ended in 1914, went from the fall of the Roman Empire to 1914, and political science. Didn't learn much from that. Most of the time I was playing in bands in Dublin. But I had a wonderful time in Dublin, and my best friends I met there. I really loved Ireland. I still do. I'm going back there in August to play at called a ukulele huli there. Why they've hired me, I don't know, because I can't play very well, but they're very kind to me there. And that's where I made my first record, which became the top 10 hit in Ireland. It was the first Irish-made record to ever get into the charts, which means there's a link between Ian Whitcomb and U2. I don't think they like that connection much. Yes?
What would you, how hard is it for a guitar player to make a leap to ukulele?
I'd be going backwards, and it's much simpler to play. It's much simpler than playing guitar. To get a basic strum and find those figures, it's easy. That's why so many people, there are clubs all over Los Angeles. I go to them, and they meet once a week, and these strummers, and they all sit there and they play every kind of song from Bridge Over Troubled Water to whatever. And they sit there and they strum and they sing. And it's a joyous sight to see. The ukulele brings nothing but smiles. It's a really happy instrument. I love it. I've had some very happy moments playing the ukulele and writing songs. I still write songs. I mean, songwriting is really what I'm interested in most of all. But when I say songwriting, I mean songs that have proper tunes and words. I know I sound old-fashioned, but I can't get along with rap today and hip-hop because it doesn't need to have any tunes. I mean, if you want to analyze rap, Winston Churchill was actually a rapper because he just spoke without tunes. We shall fight them on the beaches. That's rapping too. He rapped. FDR rapped too. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. That's rapping, really. But rapping has nothing to do with songwriting. That's what I'm saying. It may be saying some important things. I'm not against it from that. But the point is, it has nothing to do with music. I've said enough opinions. I'm sure I've shocked you all today. I'm a man of many opinions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And don't forget, help yourself to the books and the CDs. Anything on the stages except my uke is for you. Thank you.